The first fish being moved to the second row of the aquarium rack is none other than...
Oh yes. So many of you wanted me to get this. So many of you will be happy I got this. We are temporarily going with a pufferfish for this tank. Specifically, Tetradon linatus, I believe how you say that. The Fahaka puffer. Gets to be a big puffer, but not as big as others. I've been wanting to keep one of these guys for a very long time.
Tyrese, the Fahaka puffer. Man, does time ever fly. Can you believe that it's been 6 years since we unboxed him? Boy, oh boy, has he put on some size and coloration, and he's just an absolutely friendly little fella. I wouldn't say little, he's probably about 9 or 10 inches or so. He's currently in a 4-foot long tank, and the tank that he's going into is a replica of this. You guys know I built these tanks a while ago. Luckily, the Fahaka puffer isn't really an active swimmer. They kind of just more like a hummingbird, floating around and that sort of thing. This is why I was able to kind of put in large chunks of wood with his Anubias. None of this is going. He's getting a brand new tank, and I'd like to set it up a little bit differently than we ever had before. So what I'm thinking with this one, since Tyrese is a Fahaka puffer, scaleless fish, he's gonna need soft rocks and relatively smooth wood. He also likes to lay down, so I also thought maybe we could kind of create some sort of lush bedding for him. Let's see what happens. So we've got an aquarium. I don't really need to plumb this just yet, but the bulkhead in the back is going to go right through, if it can. Yeah, right through down into the bottom tank, and then it's going to be delivered right back up to it. This tank, the tank beside it, and the 180 gallon that's below it will all be connected. This is around 55 gallons, the one beside it around 55, giving us 110, plus the 180 is obviously, if you math like I do, where are we at? 290 gallon system. I really, really like this rock. But I want it higher because the plants that we're going to be adding are going to grow up and they'll hide that rock. So I would like it. What's the other side look like? No, not as pretty. Toss them in there like that. It's creating like a little base for the big rock to go on. Now, it's going to look horrible right now, but you got to remember we're going to be putting in substrate and grass is going to kind of grow up around it. However, I also like the idea that he can go under and hide under that little cave there. Now I want some sticks. I just try to make sure, I like to have sticks come up off the ground with a couple of contact points. I also don't like if this was here, this part here, well, it's curved, but that's going to be more difficult to hide if it was straight, so I kind of like to put it behind rocks and stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to go there. Here's a couple curvy pieces of wood. If at all possible, you always kind of want your wood to flow with the rock, if you know what I'm talking about. But also maintenance-wise, long-term use, you're not going there. When you're cleaning the front panel of your glass, you kind of want to look in here and make sure you can get like a magnet or whatever you typically clean with. You'll also notice I'm not putting any sort of background in this. Just gonna see what happens not using them for a little bit on these ones. Plus I gave a lot of them away. I don't really have many left. That actually looks good. Gives me nice depth. I wouldn't mind a little something more right here. Maybe something like, just to fill that like little void right there. We need more rocks. But, like I said, shouldn't these rocks be growing over something? And if you position the rocks, and this is the best part about using like smooth river stones like this, and I literally got them from the Salmon River. I live in Salmon River, Nova Scotia, which is right outside Truro, Nova Scotia, but I call it Salmon River because technically that's where the mail gets delivered. But with these river rocks, you can, with this curvy type of wood, you can literally curve the wood or pack these rocks under it so it looks incredibly natural. I don't have a lot for this scape, but because we'll be adding quite a bit of substrate to this, I kind of want the rocks piled up. I think we're done. Time. How long was that? And tell me this doesn't actually look good. Now imagine we'll add in all the substrate. We're going to do that here in a second. But also, I think a big Amazon sword coming out of here, because that's what I have. And then dwarf sedge. We've got some cryptocorin species. We'll put the cryptocorin near the back, the sedge in the front. It'll look relatively good. Well, I think so. And it's perfect height, eh? Yeah, that was fast. But that's the best type of scapes you could make, is one that just feels right. Like you just know this is perfect. Yeah, that's great. Well, also it must be nice to have great wood and, you know, really good set of rocks. But I've been collecting this stuff. I bought all this wood years and years ago. Like 9 years ago, 8 years ago. I just keep reusing it. I don't keep a tremendous amount of pleco, so it doesn't get like degraded or eaten or anything like that. Man, this looks good. I really like this one. Favorite aquarium on the rack so far. We don't have a lot to go by. Substrate. The substrate is from the 16-foot long tank. As you can see, it's a combination of pool filtration sand and ADA aqua soil. It actually looks really good and really natural when you do it like that. And I have a lot of it, so we'll add as much as we want. It's gonna look pretty bad right now. There's no water in here. And this is like drenched, soaked soil. Looks like I might have added too much, but just give me a second. We are not done yet. So I like this substrate simply because it allows me to plant plants and fill the tank up and not have to deal with a bunch of floating plants, you know, kind of shortly after. The mix of the soil plus the pool filtration sand gives me a consistency where the density of it is absolutely perfect. It's kind of like mud, but also breathable. Yeah, it's quite nice. Amazon sword's already kind of placed in the back here. All of this is reused materials as well. So this would be considered like a plant. And then it's going to send off little shoots of roots and create another plant directly beside it, offering you a nice carpet. Not all carpet plants work out here in the gallery. Dwarf chainsword is another one that's a really good carpeting plant, but never really worked that well out here in the gallery. I've tried it, just didn't work. It probably has more to do with me and my obsession with water changes than it does with the plants itself, because Tamara seems to be able to grow a tremendous amount of plants that I've never had luck with. I highly suggest, if you don't like work or doing much, to go with plants that send off runners, as opposed to stem plants that need to be, you know, constantly trimmed. With runner plants, you just rip them out if you have too many. You don't got to trim them or anything like that. I'm literally just grabbing clumps at this point because I've gotten lazy, and I'm just shoving them in. It'll be 100% fine. I did that with the 700 because I was taking me hours to plant tiny little plants at a time, and then I just gave up and started shoving the clumps in. I did that with the piranha tank. And what I found was if I just jam them in, the lazier I get, the more successful I am. Believe it or not. That's music to some people's ears. With planted tanks anyway. I did run into a problem with the 700 about a week or two ago. I was wondering why when I was going to bed the lights were on, and when I was coming out here the lights were on. It's because I was messing with the color spectrum a couple weeks prior, and because of that I messed up the timer, and the plants simply were not turning, or the lights were simply not turning off. So they stayed on for 2 weeks straight and almost roasted every plant in there. Close call. I was wondering why nothing was growing and I was getting algae. Yeah, these are all the plants that I was floating in the flower horn tanks. They're freaking out because I stole their plants, but I'll just have to get them more. The only thing I will do is when I uproot a plant to plant it somewhere else is kind of want to find, a lot of it's going to be roots, like check this out. So what I'll do is, well, this one's got a thick stem on it, which indicates it's probably a mother plant, so you don't want to mess with the big part of the stem too much. But I definitely like to take off a lot of the roots because it triggers new growth, I've found. Unfortunately, they have a massive root system though. So I might only get 3 or 4 plants out of this big mess, but they're there. That should do it. At least for right now. We got a couple big swords. These swords are gonna get really big and fluffy, and then this will fill in. Well, hopefully. Let's fill it up. Now, we're not going to be moving Tyrese into that tank today. Likely in about a week, maybe upwards of 2. Heck, maybe even a little bit longer because I want his new tank to get established so he can't kind of rip it apart. He's not very destructive and he's actually incredibly friendly, but because the next tank we have to move or set up is Tamara's ropefish tank, we're taking a massive amount of plants out of here and adding it into the aquarium right beside. They're going to go right here. Now, the tank that we just looked at is only 32 inches long, whereas this one is 48 by 16 by 16, identical in dimensions. However, way too many plants for this tank. So one of the things I'm going to do is once we get this one completed, scaped, and set up, I'm going to take whatever's left over and plant them in this aquarium because it could honestly use some more plants. I also have to install 180 gallon below it, get the filtration up and running, and then I can top off this tank and start running it properly. I'm also thinking I might run CO2 on it for 3 weeks, give all these plants a really good jump start. But once this grows in, we won't be able to see the wood as much, and I think it's just going to be a lush little jungle for Tyrese to really, really enjoy. I have a strange feeling he's going to be laying on the rock or maybe under it or something like that, but we'll see in the days to come. So the tank is now completed, and in my opinion, it looks really good. However, we first and foremost got to realize that it kind of looks like pretty sparse for plants in here. It always starts out like this, and then as the plants grow, obviously they'll fill it in. I did want to have some spacing, but we will be adding in even more plants to this here shortly just to kind of top it off. Probably double the amount of plants, but we'll see. It's going to depend on what goes on over here, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. But you'll also notice that I've added in some trident Java fern to a few of the peaks here and there. And we'll give it time, but in my opinion, what I think is going to happen, because these swords get pretty big, is they're going to fill out this entire area and kind of just leave the wood coming out with this. We'll see. I think it's going to look really cool long term. But you'll also notice that the tank's not filled up completely, and it's on purpose. The overflow's right there. And what I did is you can see the pipe going down behind it, which is white, as the same color as the wall, so it kind of doesn't even get seen. But then it goes all the way through to the other side, and just temporarily like that, because we're going to add in some more plumbing to it and whatnot. but then it's going to be drained into, I might put a filter on top before it hits the 180, but it's going into the 180 gallon aquarium where all the water gets mixed and filtered by one big filter and then goes back up to each individual tank. To get up to each individual tank, a couple of holes drilled there, because that 180 that's going to go here, both of these tanks here are draining into it, and then one filter returning all the water to both. So water will drain from this tank and this tank through their overflows, and then the filter will return it up individually. It'll be really, really cool. If you take a look over here, it's pretty clean. Looks pretty awesome. The lights on it right now are not permanent. They're just like, I've just put them on there so we can see. But that's where we're at with it thus far. Now this is the next aquarium, the ropefish tank, and as you can see, the substrate's already in it, and I went ahead and rinsed it in advance so I wouldn't have any issues like any sort of mess that we had previously. This one's gonna take quite a while because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of plants that I've got to individually plant. One of the things I'm hoping is maybe I could take them all out in one mat and kind of just drop them in there somehow. I don't know. I don't think dwarf Sagittaria kind of works like that, but I guess we'll see. And if you want to see how this tank comes together next, make sure you like this video, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you then.